Hey everyone, Harry here to talk about the questions from the jury to the court only a few hours after beginning deliberations yesterday. Just a quick note on questions. They happen in deliberations. A phone rings with a jangling sound in the overflow room. The regular court being closed off where the press is, and everybody jumps and wonders if it's a verdict and the like. That'll be happening for the next day or two until there's a verdict. But indeed, it happened. And then the next thing that happens is the judge, after the parties come into the courtroom, the judge reads what the jury has written. And then there's discussion and argument with the lawyers, and which could take a while. These are really fertile grounds for appeal. This is by definition, almost stress points in the jury's decision making. And so they become important, and the judge just doesn't think about it for himself, but rather, hears argument from the parties about what they should do. So that's a whole process. In fact, let me explain how that worked yesterday. So yesterday they came in near the end of the day with 4 questions and a separate request. So they did 2 separate questions. The first sheaf had 4 things, which I'm going to focus on in a moment. The second said, give us all the instructions, something that under New York law, crazy as it sounds, they're not permitted to have with them. Now, it took the judge almost an hour and a half to read them. So the question that it prompted is, why do you want all of them? Do you maybe want a subset? While that was all being worked out, the jury left for the day and to return this morning and to clarify perhaps that second request. I'll get to all of that soon. Let's go to the most important stuff, which is their 4 requests for evidence. Okay. All of these focus on the McDougal trial. Well, I have a particular interpretation of them, so I don't want to prejudge that. Here's what they were. First, it's been reported as 4th, but I think it matters. This is the first request, the phone call between Pecker and Trump. And remember, Pecker is at some meeting and people come in and say, Donald Trump is on the phone, and he's pulled out to talk to him. This is in 2016 involving the Karen McDougal revelations. We'll return to it in a moment, but obviously it's a memorable event for him. Second is the decision by Pecker and AMI eventually not to pay for the McDougal. They go through the whole transaction, but remember, he gets cold feet after talking to his counsel, and they don't fund it, and they have to find another way. Third and fourth are Pecker and Cohen on the meeting at Trump Tower that sort of launches the whole conspiracy in, I believe, August of 2015. Let's start there. And, well, let me give you my bottom line. I think, obviously, part of this is they want to corroborate Cohen, and the instruction they were given is that Cohen is an accomplice here to the crime, and that means under New York law, and they were instructed, they may not find Trump guilty based only on Cohen's testimony. They need corroboration. So that is one, important point. But I think that this is already beginning to zero in on Trump. Okay, let me explain. So the meeting in Trump Tower, first, it's Trump's meeting. He summons them there. There are other things in which you have Cohen coming in and saying this or that to the boss, but this is Trump's meeting. It's really Trump and Pecker's meeting. Cohen is sort of the consigliere or emissary who's there. Hope Hicks is in and out. But this is Trump and Pecker. Pecker says, I'll be the campaign's eyes and ears. I'll look out especially for people coming out from under the carpet to claim women who've claimed affairs with Donald Trump. He has a reputation already, says Pecker, for being a playboy. And in fact, there's some item that they run that refers to him that way that is immediately killed. But anyway, this is where the actual conspiracy, as it were, or, unlawful criminal conduct is hatched. And I believe, it's the most important, and I think maybe the only event, literally, in which there are more than one person testifying about it. Every time there's a crisis, you have all kinds of one-on-one calls. You have Cohen calls Hicks and Davidson and back and forth, and that kind of frenzy. This, I believe, there's another three-way meeting, but it's Weisselberg who doesn't testify, and Cohen and Trump. This three-way is, I think, the only one the jury heard about, and that matters because they're able to hear, and they've asked for, these were the last two requests, the Cohen testimony and the Pecker testimony, so you can combine them. Figure out exactly what happened here, which again is Trump's meeting and Trump's initiation and Trump's telling Pecker, work through Michael, my emissary here, exactly what Cohen has said his role is. And you can compare, you have the immediate, probably best opportunity in the trial to corroborate what Cohen has to say, because you can put it right up against what Pecker has to say. And there aren't other events which in real time, in my recollection, there's a lot of stuff, for example, about Access Hollywood, Stormy Daniels, but here's the same meeting from two different voices. One of them is Cohen. So that obviously matters as to corroborating Cohen, but I think it really matters because it's Trump's meeting and he's the one who initiates it. The next is, why didn't they wind up paying for or executing the McDougal contract? I think the jury may be somewhat confused here about how it happened with McDougal, and may be confused between McDougal and Stormy. But that can matter because in general, the judge is not going to fill in the blanks for them. If it's not clear what they're saying, and one party especially advocates it, they're just going to leave it alone, or tell them, refer to some other thing to make them try to clarify matters. But remember, McDougal winds up getting a payment. I think it's $120,000. And it's really mainly about the hush money, but it's also in theory about her doing cover stories and the like. And they wind up not worrying about the money that AMI has paid, because one cover does so splendidly. AMI basically says, it's all right, don't worry about it. The jury's question indicates to me they're a little murky on that, so that's interesting how Merchant is to handle it. But the first one, and in the accounts of this is listed fourth, but it's first, and I think that matters, is the call between Pecker and Trump. So first, it's got that kind of detail of real plausibility. You remember when you're in a meeting and you're interrupted because Donald Trump's on the phone. And second, what happens in that call? It's about McDougal. Trump places it. He says that apparently there's a Mexican group that wants to pay millions of dollars for McDougal's story, though he doesn't believe it. He asked Pecker what he should do. And Pecker, doesn't say exactly, did you have a relationship with McDougal? But he testifies he believes that Trump did. And he, further, Trump calls her a nice girl in the conversation. You don't do that about a stranger you've never heard of who's accusing you of having had a 1 year long or so 9-month affair. And it's pretty clear that these allegations are true. And it's on that basis that Pecker advises Trump, you need to buy this and kill it. So it takes that advice. So that very much goes to Trump's credibility, right? Because, through his lawyer, he was forced to tell them to represent he had not had sex with anyone. That was the statement he made, the public statement, and that came out. So it makes him look like a liar here and for Stormy Daniels. But then I would say even more importantly, when they decide that they'll do this, he tells Pecker, work through Michael. In other words, he, in his own voice, and, there's not much in his own voice, but the meeting is one, here is another. He tells them, exactly the role that Michael Cohen says he played, not some kind of free agent, kind of, magically out of the goodness of his heart, as Trump told Hope Hicks, giving $130,000 to Stormy Daniels, rather the person who is his point person on and sort of enforcer and tough guy on the actual deal. That to me is basically huge because it reinforces everything that Cohen is saying, but it points directly at Trump and Trump's involvement, Trump causing these false papers to be filed, which is the sort of core of the baseline charge of falsification, the misdemeanor that is then worked up to a felony. So I think that's all critical. And then there's one more thing that people have largely overlooked. The jury asked this morning for audio headphones. What would that be about? They want to listen to something. And what in turn would that be? Well, this is all about McDougal and Trump. Seems to me quite likely that they want to hear again the actual voice of Donald Trump as Michael Cohen taped him in the McDougal call. And again, that's very powerful evidence of Trump's guilt here and sort of being the moving force behind, being the boss, as it were, the moving force behind the whole transaction, because he says how much it's going to cost us, should we pay in cash, etc. So that extra snippet to me all adds up to, one thing that's going on, and a standing kind of thing for all these questions. It's Kremlinology, as it were. You're working with little snippets and trying to make sense of them. But to me, we've got two things going on. One, the corroboration of Michael Cohen, which they have to do under the law, but really the zeroing in on the role of Donald Trump, lying about his romantic liaisons and being the moving force and the guy who causes all these false papers to be filed, because he is, he's not someone who just finds about it later and ratifies, which would probably still be sufficient for guilt. But he's the guy, he's the boss who says, we're doing this and work with Cohen. Exactly what the DA said, exactly what Cohen said, and the, very powerful evidence of Trump's guilt. So I think that is what's going on with the jury on those four substantive questions. And we'll talk a little bit more in a different tape about just what happened this morning in court when the jury returned and they got the testimony they were asking for, as well as the legal instructions. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.